I'd want to be in the Champions League. But maybe because I've got like a little bit of privilege when it comes to the Champions League, like I feel that every year that we're in there's a chance that we could win it.
We had fans invading the training pitch and fighting with the players. We had a president who was threatening to kick people out. There was a club that had not won the title in 18 years. And he has completely and utterly transformed.
This is going to really test the theory that I often hear from boxing aficionados that a good big un will always beat a good little un. What's happening, guys? Welcome to this week's Not For Click Sports Podcast. Me, Jordan Jack Bryan, your host. I'm with Gabriel, but we're two down. We're two down, but I would say making up for the loss of Ollie and Marv. I mean, loss sounds like they've died. They haven't died. They haven't they haven't died, but making up for their absence. Wow. We've got Jack Collins here from multiple podcasts, including Ranked FC. What are you saying, Jack?
How you doing, man? Great to be on. Thanks for having me. It's been a while, man.
It has been a while, man. You were on with us in our previous iteration, Football Fans Podcast, but it's good to have you back. Listen, we will be talking a bit of Fulham, your beloved Fulham, a bit later on. So we will get there soon, I promise. Been a good season for your boys. And later on, we'll be talking a bit of boxing ahead of the big Usyk Fury fight as well. But lots to get through. Oh, first of all, sorry, G, my manners. Good evening, G. How are we doing, Gabriel? You well?
I'm not too bad. Three wins and a bounce. Like top four if you count the table
wasn't
from
asking
December.
for you to kind of go through your mini run of 3 games on the road. Like I was asking how you are.
But I gave it to you. That's how I'm doing.
Fair enough. All right.
How are you doing? Are you supporting a certain Lily Whites tonight?
Well, listen, that's a good segue because I was just going there at the time of recording. Literally this second, Spurs and Man City are warming up ahead of their game in the Premier League. I will be focused, I will be professional, and I'm fully engaged in this podcast and listening to everything that Jack and Gabriel have to say for the next hour. But there is a big game happening, as I mentioned there. And look, guys, all the talk ahead of this match has been around Spurs fans, right? I reckon half the fan base don't want to win because they know that it could help Arsenal. The other half of the fan base are saying, well, how can you be a true football fan of a club if you want your team to lose? Like, all right, it might inadvertently help Arsenal, but what kind of fan are you? And I know where I stand on this, but Jack, let me come to you first, right? Do you think actually the Spurs fans who are hoping their team loses today to not help Arsenal are pathetic, or actually do you get it? And would you be the same if it was you and your local rivals?
No, it's definitely not pathetic. It's very understandable from a long range perspective. Honestly, I think if Villa had won last night, then obviously it changes things a little bit because that completely and utterly rules Spurs out of the Champions League race. With that still on the line, and then that adds to this sort of weird dichotomy going on as well. Arsenal fans supporting Liverpool last night, so they beat Villa, so that Spurs would have a chance of getting in the Champions League. So they beat City and hand it back to them. All sorts of stuff going on.
City fans supporting Man United on the weekend as well.
just chaos around the kind of ranks and the whole thing. So look, this is the beauty of football in so many ways. I understand it because there is a sense of being like, if Spurs got in the top 4 and they got in the Champions League next year, I actually think they might have more fun in the Europa League. I think the team feels like it's kind of at that level at this point where it's able to kind of punch upwards. I don't see Spurs going deep in the Champions League. I think they could make a really deep run in the Europa League, and there's no more drop downs between them now. So that changes things a little bit in that regard as well. So actually, from that perspective, I think it's a bit much of a muchness. But if they get in the Champions League in 25 years, are people going to be talking about the fact that Spurs got in the Champions League this season? Probably not. In 25 years, if they hand Arsenal the title, are people going to be talking about that? Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. Gunners fans will have that over them forever and ever. So I understand it.
25 years. Jack, in 25 minutes.
Mate, they'll never hear the end of it. So, look, I think you go out and you want to win. And look, the players out there will want to win the game. I don't care how much the crowd change, what the crowd feel. The players will want to win the game. They want to test themselves against the top level. But I can absolutely understand it from Spurs fans, yeah.
Jack,
Go on, G, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask Jack, who would for you? Who would be that equivalent of the Tottenham and
geez.
Arsenal? Who would be the team? Who would be the team that you hate?
Jack, don't
that you wouldn't wanna
bite.
win the
Jack,
league?
don't bite. Jack, don't bite.
No,
Don't
don't worry.
bite, Jack. Don't
Don't worry. I
bite.
got an answer. I got an answer here because I have this every year. Because Chelsea don't consider Fulham as rivals, and I know that, and that's fine. It's whatever. But I grew up in West London, so I grew up with my aunt being a Brentford fan. Her husband's a QPR fan. My best three mates are all Chelsea fans. Right? I've got the whole shebang around me. And so I always say every year, this is the answer.
How's Low FC? Is that your local derby?
Honestly, mate, Hamwell Town's the only place we all agree. But when it comes to it, the team I want to beat most every year is Chelsea. The team I want to lose to least is Brentford.
Interesting.
Okay. That's a good answer. The team I don't care about the most is all three of them.
Do your thing, man. Do your thing.
Let me ask you, G. So, I mean, Jack's earlier answer there about the fact that he gets it, fandom and rivalries. I get it as well, right? You know, a lot of football now is viewed through the prism of podcasts and fan channels and social media, right? So the banter, and Arsenal fans are loud. So I get it, right? As Spurs fans, I totally get it.
Obnoxious is the word.
I wouldn't go that far, but they're definitely loud. So I do get, you know, football rivalry and all that. But is it fair to say that it kind of sums up Spurs a little bit, the fact that they don't want to focus on progression, which would be Champions League, to basically spite their rivals not winning the Premier League, rather than focusing on their view and accepting that Arsenal are going to win a Premier League title soon, whether you like it or not. But you can progress and overachieve.
I mean, that's a little bit of a reach that they're going to win it whether we like it or not. There's no guarantee on that.
It's definitely coming.
It's been coming for 20 years, John.
Nah, it's coming now. It's coming now. But do you agree with Jack, or do you think actually Spurs fans, this is the part of the problem? They're so focused on Arsenal, they can't build their own club.
I think there's a little bit of both. It is a little bit sad. Personally, I'd want to be in the Champions League, but maybe because I've got a little bit of privilege when it comes to the Champions League. Like, I feel that every year that we're in there, there's a chance that we could win it. So I'd want to be in there. Like, call it arrogance, call it like useful hope. Once you've won it a couple of times, you always believe that you have a chance. So I'd want to qualify. But I can kind of understand from a Spurs fan's point of view. As Jack said, they're not going to go really far. This whole qualifying for Champions League almost as a trophy, which kind of Arsenal tried to create, I think it's kind of dwindling a little bit. People are realizing that actually, okay, you get the money, but you can always come back next year. You know, with all of the new financial rules, Spurs don't like spending money anyway. Even if they got into the Champions League, they got the extra money. They're not exactly going to go out and buy like great players to facilitate their squad. So they might as well not have their rivals win the league at their ground for a third time, even though they're not there this time. So I understand it. I relate to it. But personally, if it was me, I'd be focused on we got to get in the Champions League.
Does anybody think that Jack, do you think it's irrelevant anyway? Because are you 100% confident the City win the game no matter how good Spurs play? Or do you think actually Spurs players will be up for this? They've been on a poor run. I know they won their last game. They've been on a poor run. Big Ange, as everybody calls him. He won't want to lose or end the season with, 5 defeats in 7. Do you think they'll win the game or get something from the game, or do you think it's irrelevant whether they want to win it or not? City are going to just take the 3 points.
I don't think it's necessarily irrelevant if they want to win the game or not. It's just this City teams feel so kind of machine-like at the end of seasons. You watch the game at the Cottage at the weekend. I think Fulham played that badly. I watched the game against Wolves last weekend. I didn't think Wolves played that badly. They've won those 2 games 9-1 on aggregate. Like, it's just, it gets to this point and you're like, is there anything anyone can do? And like when they find this groove, this is what Guardiola does best, right? And I was on a City podcast talking about it before the game against Fulham. And my kind of feeling was like, I hope Fulham come on, I hope they turn up, I hope they perform. But even if they do, and they do that, it's probably not going to matter. Now, it's a bit different with Spurs. Obviously, there is this league hoodoo, if you will, at the new stadium. They won that game there in January, the FA Cup. That was a late goal. It wasn't a great game, I didn't think, and it was relatively even. Spurs proved a thorn in City's side when they played them the first time. But I just think when it gets to this point of the season, you just see this kind of machine clockwork Man City that just seem to steamroll teams. And when they get into that kind of mood, there just isn't all that much that unless you are literally toe to toe, and I think Arsenal could probably play them now and it'll be a really good game and maybe that would be different. But against someone who isn't directly competing against you, someone that isn't Real Madrid, someone that isn't Arsenal, someone that isn't this year's Bayer Leverkusen, I don't know who else could stand up to this team if they find their groove tonight. And they seem to be finding their groove every single time they play at the moment.
It's not been lost on me that Arsenal have beaten United and Marvin's not here this week. He's away and that's okay. That's fine. We will have lives beyond the podcast. I get it. But
Seems convenient.
Well, a little bit. But we will do a full review of Arsenal beating United next week on the pod. And God help everyone on this podcast if that's as Premier League champions as well. Let me tell you, I am going to be awful. Yeah,
I can't lie. I might be busy if that's
the case. But just on that game briefly, we will touch on it a bit more next week. It wasn't the greatest of games. It wasn't a 5-1 that I thought it was going to be. Do you think the stars are aligning for an Arsenal title win, or do you go along with Jack that actually? City.
Don't set me up.
No, I'm giving you a chance to be unbiased for 30 seconds. Do you think that City, they'll get it done tonight and they'll get it done the weekend? It's a wrap.
You know what? Like, credit to Arsenal. I think I've been, like most fans, probably quite dismissive of them, thinking that, City will just show up eventually. But they've really hung in there and they've made it a race. And you know what? I even if they end up coming second, I think this is a credible second. Like, they actually, it's. You could argue it's up there with when Liverpool really pushed them really, really close. So that's the credit I'll give to Arsenal. With that said, I still think City, if you had City to win 2 games to win the league, to go away to Tottenham where Ange likes to spread his legs wide and just take whatever's coming, and then go back to go home to beat West Ham at home. I think you got to take that. So I think City are in pole position, but I think Arsenal deserve a lot of credit for the way they've handled themselves this year.
All right, we'll do a pod next week. Like I said, rounding up the season, we'll do our awards as well.
Jack, do you want to take my place, Jack?
Yeah, well, I might have to, mate. That's what happens on Sunday.
Jack is more than welcome, but you keep your ass on this podcast, G, because we're gonna have a full crew next week, whether we come first or second. All right, let's. I wanted to, we will get to Fulham in a bit, and we might try and squeeze some chat around the 3 teams that have gone down as well. That you put in our group, Gabriel. We might actually do that afterward. But what I wanted to get you on mainly, Jack, to discuss with us is the European landscape in regards to managers, right? Because I know you're a man that has a real strong understanding of European football. I know that you travel across Europe as well. And I remember a lot of people, when we did the podcast in its previous iteration, the Football Fans podcast, always told me that they really rated your views on, not on Fulham, but on everything else. They really, really thought you were great.
Yeah, I know nothing about Fulham, to be fair. It's the only place where heart rules head, isn't it?
I've only been an idiot. And I think it's an interesting summer because there's a lot of probable, potential, likely movement across the landscape, right? Of football clubs. Let's start with Liverpool, right? And Arne Slot, who's all but confirmed to be joining them. Is this a good appointment? And if not, what do you think is the sort of profile of manager that you thought Liverpool should have brought in post Klopp?
Well, I really liked Amorim. And still really do. I think he's done a wonderful job at Sporting, and actually more than anything else, what he's built from where they were is probably the most similar, you'd imagine, to what Klopp has done at Liverpool. You look at what Klopp actually inherited, and look, I think sometimes that's overplayed, the kind of lack of a squad, because you can actually look at the City sides, etc., that the Pep inherited, and they weren't great either. But I think when Amorim came in at Sporting, he took over a club that were in complete and utter turmoil. We had fans invading the training pitch and fighting with the players. We had a president who was threatening to kick people out. There was a club that had not won the title in 18 years. And he has completely and utterly transformed what Sporting are, brought them back to the big three. This is their second league title in 4 years, 3 that he's been fully at the helm. And I think that the fact he's done that while selling on players, and we've seen a lot of players leave Nuno Mendes to PSG, Ugarte to PSG, Palhinha, Mateus Nunes, there's a Pedro Porro. There's been a whole selection of players, and he's brought through youngsters. He's brought in sensible signings, brought them all into his system and made them fit. And I was really, really hot on that link for Liverpool. I thought it made loads of sense. But I quite like Stott too. I don't like it as much, but I think that in terms of what he brings to the table, what he's done at first AZ Alkmaar and then at Feyenoord, to turn that around and how they won the league last year. The only reason they haven't won it twice is because PSV have been absolutely off the scale good this season. But actually, I think Feyenoord have got more points than they did when they won the title last year, which probably shows you that they haven't really dropped off. They've actually just come up against a very, very good PSV side. That's fine. So he's a manager that seems to get players to buy into what he wants really, really quickly. He hasn't had to move players across from his old clubs to follow him. He's been able to go into dressing rooms and get things moving at a pretty sharp pace. And I think that when you hear what his players have spoken about, and then the players that come out of there and talk about him, some of them have played for the greatest managers across the continent, and they put him right up there with them in terms of what he does, his instruction, and also just what he brings to the table in terms of making things simple and allowing these players to go out and play whilst not kind of abandoning tactical structures. I think he's got a big job to do. I think Liverpool are a good side without being a great side right now. I think defensively there's a lot to clean up. And I think that this midfield, whilst there's been some really impressive performances in it this year from McAllister and Szoboszlai and Endo, it's not quite right, the balance yet. I'm not sure quite what they're doing there. And there's a couple of players who I'm sure he'll look at and be like, I love Harvey Elliott, but I'm not sure where he plays and what he does. Like he doesn't seem to have a defined role in this team yet. And that's a bit of a funny one for a manager trying to come in and set their own standards. So I think it's a good appointment. But I think he has got a fairly big job on his hands, not just replacing an icon, but also in terms of actually turning this team back into full-on title contenders, which I think they were kind of playing at a little bit this year. When they regressed to the mean, I wasn't hugely surprised.
Yeah, I mean, let's stay in the Prem then, because let's go to West Ham now, because me and Gabriel, we spoke. So we had Dan. What are you laughing for?
I just remember the conversation with Dan.
Well, we had Dan Lawless on from West Ham Fan TV on the pod last week, right? And we spoke about Moyes moving on and Lopetegui coming in. And maybe a bit unfairly, I kind of basically said this felt like a bit of a sideways move, and it felt like a foreign David Moyes, and that's disrespectful because Lopetegui's had some bums on his CV. He's also got some quite credible clubs and some good what's the word I'm looking for? He's had some good stints at clubs as well, right? And that's not to be disrespected. Do you think this is an upgrade, and do you think the West Ham fans are going to like what Lopetegui is going to bring there next year, or do you fear the perception of him will be shared amongst others like me, and that will be difficult to overcome? The perception being that he's quite a dour defensive manager.
I don't think that perception's particularly wrong. And I think that when you're kind of looking at what he's done best, he's put teams and made them more defensively sturdy. He's tightened them up. They haven't played the most exciting football. And that's okay when you're winning things. And I go back to his spell at Sevilla. It was okay while they were winning trophies when they won the Europa League. But they were battling in the relegation zone, just outside it in the league for a lot of the year. And he kind of got away with it the first year because they were like, well, that's fine, we're going to win the Europa League. And they did. Fine, credit where it's due. But when it came around the second year and the results didn't match up to these performances, when the results suddenly weren't great, it all felt like it was like, okay, cool, we just, we've got to move on. They did so. They won the Europa League again. And it's like, okay, right, fine. So where are they at? I think that West Ham fans have been given a bit of a rough ride this season by a lot of the media for basically being like, why do you want to move on? When some of the football under Moyes has been at times abhorrent. And I think that when you kind of look at how many times they've had, 4 or 5 put past them this season, they really have been some bad times.
No, I can't. Abhorrent is a bit of, like, dry, boring, defensive. All right,
abhorrent. Like, sickening at times.
You know, Dan somewhere smiling now. Thinking, I don't know why I'm saying that, because you sort of like the media, Jack. We ripped him for exactly the same reason as well. We killed him.
I think there's a flip, right, in that Moyes deserved more respect.
We did.
But equally, I can absolutely understand, and I think West Ham fans shouldn't be ridiculed for wanting to move him on at that time. He did some brilliant things. That's fine. But also, those brilliant things have come to an end quite quickly. And we've got to this point, it's like, well, okay, standing still is going backwards, right? In the Premier League, in this era where people pouring money in, trying to move forward, trying to move into the European places, standing still is going backwards. Brighton have found that out this year, right? So when you kind of look at what's going on there, I think they needed to make some kind of change. I think Lopetegui's a good manager. I just don't think it's going to be the change that West Ham fans will want in terms of, are they going to suddenly start playing free-flowing, glorious attacking football? Absolutely not.
No, we'll come back to the Premier in a minute, but let's pivot now to the Bundesliga. We'll get to Alonso in a second. But I was thinking just today, actually, I did another recording on another podcast, and we were talking about the fact that Bayer Leverkusen could win an invincible treble, right?
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, and I'll ask you this question, do you think if they were to complete that, that would be a bigger achievement than the United treble?
Oh, no, because it doesn't have a Champions League. But I do get your angle. One thing I will say, one thing I will say though, is that it will, if they go unbeaten, it'll be better than the Arsenal invincible.
All right, yeah.
That's for sure.
10 seconds. Yeah, we get it, G. All right. That was the question, by the way.
I thought that's what you were going to ask me. I don't know why you.
So did I, to be fair.
Because it's not a silly question. Obviously, it's better than bloody a treble undefeated season. It's clearly better than an invincible season winning a league. So it's a non-question. That's
a fake invincible season where Arsenal lost in other competitions as well.
Listen, respect the Invincibles, yeah. But you think having a European Cup in your achievement trumps the fact that you've gone unbeaten the whole season?
Yeah, I really do. To be honest with you, only Arsenal fans talk about going unbeaten. No one else really cares. Like, Champions League is it's the pinnacle of football at the moment. But I don't want to underestimate what Leverkusen have done, because it's been brilliant. And I guess you would say, with all due respect, for their level of club, it's as big as probably any treble ever. But when you look at all of the best trebles, you take away the context, you would say the Champions League would be better.
All right, and on Alonso, I'd stick with you, G. He's turned down the chance to go to Bayern Munich, and we'll go to Jack in a second to maybe get his theory as to why he might have chosen to stay at Leverkusen. But are you one of these people that believes those opportunities don't come up very often and take it while it's there, or do you think actually this is a sensible and the right move?
You know what? When Alonso first made the decision, I actually thought that it would be good for him, because there will be time in the future for him to grow, and he might as well stay there and build on it. But I actually look at it as there's only really down from here, right? With Leverkusen, like, I don't really see how he can really go on and progress. And okay, fair enough, he could go and win the league again, but the chances are that Bayern will come back and they'll do it. So actually, I don't know whether he was asked now whether he'd change his mind. Like, if someone said to him, "Hey, you can have the Madrid job now," Ancelotti's resigning, for instance, whether he wouldn't just go to it. So yeah, I think now that if he goes season unbeaten, gets the treble, he may as well leave.
Jack, do you agree?
No.
You think he might regret this, or he's meant to want to? I know the why.
No, I think he's made a very sensible. I think he's made a very sensible decision here, and I'd say this: Xabi Alonso has turned down numerous jobs and job opportunities over his managerial career so far. So he started, I think, with the Real Madrid under 12s or something when he was doing his coaching badges. And they tried to promote him really early on to become the Castilla manager. And he was like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. He spent another couple of years with the youth systems, then went to Real Sociedad, picked up their B team. When he was there, he got offered the Borussia Mönchengladbach job, had a real look around it, had a little kind of look to see where the club was at, decided that wasn't for him, did another year with Real Sociedad's B team, and then took the Leverkusen job. And I think that probably shows you exactly the kind of thoughtful person he is. And I love this because we spend so much time in this country fast tracking people into being managers who aren't ready to be managers yet. And I think about all these kind of races to get Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard into jobs. And I'm thinking,
Agree.
Go and do your work in the youth teams first. Go and do it. Go and learn your trade. Go and do your coaching badges. And make sure that you've learned the capacity to be a coach. And then when things go wrong, you obviously get a massive boost when a club legend walks in, right? When someone of the stature of Gerrard or Lampard walks in to a club at Derby or Chelsea or Rangers or Aston Villa, there's always going to be a boost. But once that goes wrong, there isn't much left but the vibes. And I think that what you've seen with Alonso is him learning how to deal with issues and setbacks and transitional changes and things going pear-shaped by spending time working through the mess. And I love that from him. And I think considering that I don't think loads of this Leverkusen side are going to be sold. I don't think that they're going to sit there and lots of those players, as soon as the manager, I think if he'd gone, the team could have been shredded. I think a load of those players will go, this manager believes in us. He's gone, I think we can get to the latter stages of the Champions League. I think we can win the Bundesliga again. I agree with him. Like, Bayern Munich are in a crisis. They're on their 7th attempt to hire a manager, and they've just been rejected by Crystal Palace. That's where Bayern are right now. Dortmund are a bit all over the place in that they're a great cup team and not much else. Leipzig are probably the side that you'd look at and think, who's going to make the most consistent challenge to Leverkusen next year right now? And at that point, you're thinking, can Alonso go and do it again? Maybe. Even if he doesn't, an unbeaten, as we say, if he gets there, this invincible treble, that isn't going to be going away anytime soon.
I totally agree, actually, as well. I think this idea that he's got to go now, and I think I apply it to everybody as well. All managers, they've got to go now. Is I think slightly flawed, and I also don't buy into this idea. I totally agree with what you said about the German league next year. I don't buy this idea that Bayern will definitely be back next year. This idea that it's a blip and Bayern will come back next season and they'll romp home. I'm not sure they will. I think they may win the league. Yeah. But I don't think it's a guarantee.
At the moment, Thomas Muller's going to be managing them. So it's like
it's not looking good. So when G says it can only get downhill from here, I'm not sure that's actually true. But even if it does go downhill, I think unless he kind of finishes 12th, I don't think finishing 3rd next season and having a good Champions League run is going to dent his reputation at all. So I was really glad, personally. But what I want to get onto as well is you mentioned the Bayern Munich thing there, Jack, around managers turning Bayern down. Do you think, are you going to sense that more and more managers now are being a bit more cautious and careful and strategic about the jobs they take and are not just being blinded by it's Chelsea, it's Arsenal, it's Bayern, it's United? And do you know what I mean? That kind of pull for every manager isn't necessarily automatic anymore.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a little bit more thoughtful a class of manager in some regards. There are always going to be people that when the opportunity is given to them, they take it. And that's fine because you need to have people in kind of all different aspects of the game and doing different things. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But I think the top managers are starting to have a real moment about okay, no. And think about Pep Guardiola taking a sabbatical year before he took the Manchester City job. He was like, no, I need a year out for me. Think about Jurgen Klopp being offered, what we think is a couple of these major jobs and be like, no, thank you. I don't need that right now. And I think that what we're kind of seeing is this kind of turn of being like, okay, I can't give my best and I can't give the best of me until I'm in a space where that works. What I loved recently, or semi-recently, was Jose Mourinho taking a step back and then taking the Roma job. And then being like, okay, cool. right? That's an appointment that actually probably suits where you are in your managerial career right now. It's an opportunity for you to raise a fallen giant in a country that you feel really comfortable in, and also where you have an incredible reputation. Mourinho was sacked, and his reputation went upwards. Not the fact that De Rossi's done badly, but the fact that the fans loved him so much. And then you see him linked to Newcastle. I'm like, no, I want you nowhere near the Premier League. I want you nowhere near it, because Premier League Jose is not a great Jose at this point. He was when he came in. But at this point, you're like, you just become a grumpy old guy, man. Leave it. Just stay in Italy. Everyone loves you there. You're happy. If he wants the Bayern job, fine. That's okay. But I think that managers need to start thinking about what clubs suit them before they go in blindly and take it. And Bayern right now are a bloodbath. Like, there's infighting in the board in terms of who's in charge. The squad looks a little bit all over the place. There's talk of 3-4 major players leaving in terms of Alphonso Davies. You're talking about Kimmich, who basically went to loggerheads with Tuchel, and they've decided that they're probably keeping Kimmich ahead of Tuchel. Fine. But you still need this number 6 that everyone's been banging on about for the last year and a half. We're talking about Harry Kane coming in, and fine, but are Sané and Gnabry going to be there next year? If there's another bad season, is Musiala going to stay? Because Real Madrid will be all over that. You have no doubt about that whatsoever. Real Madrid, Barcelona will be all over Jamal Musiala, and rightly so. I just think that right now it all feels a little bit all over the place. And that's why I think, more than anything else, it was a sensible one for Alonso to turn down.
There's a couple, right off with a few more. There's a couple in Italy I want to get to as well. But if we look at, in fact, let's go there now. So Gasperini and Inzaghi are two managers that I hear really good things about as well. Are they two managers that you're surprised aren't also linked with bigger or even other jobs? Or maybe you're not surprised because they may be happy where they are.
Inzaghi feels like a really nice fit into at the moment. And, the style of play and the whole club setup seems to be working for him. There were question marks over whether he could win a league. The last time that Inter won the league before this season was actually the year that Antonio Conte was in charge. And whilst they've had 2 very good years, they won the Coppa Italia. He was a very good cup manager at Lazio. They won the Coppa Italia, then they got to the Champions League final. But there was still this question mark. And the Champions League final might have saved Inzaghi's job last year because they were so far off the pace of Napoli that actually it started looking like, he might have to go. And then they turn around and absolutely storm the league with worse squad on paper than what they had last year. So I'm surprised there's not more talk about Inzaghi, but I'm not surprised he's not linking himself out anywhere, because I think he's quite happy there. And Gasperini's running a dynasty at Atalanta. I also think that if you removed him now, you have to start the whole thing all over again. And I don't feel like he's at that age profile in his life where he wants to do that. So I think he's going to stick around there. But the Juve job feels massive, George.
For sure. Gabriel, I mean, there's going to be some big managers out of work this summer. Klopp's going to be off for a year. We know Zidane. I don't know what Zidane's doing at the moment. Your boy Jose hasn't got a club. Your boy Conte hasn't got a club. Let's go on those last two, actually, though, G. What is the landscape, do you think, for Mourinho and for Conte? Because they've both managed a lot of the top clubs across Europe already, and their football isn't pretty. And at a time when I think football fans, we spoke about West Ham fans, they really appreciate watching a brand of football that they're paying money to see. Do you think there's a place for Conte and Jose still at top level clubs in Europe?
Yeah, I've never liked this kind of snobbery around style of football, which is partly my gripe with the West Ham fans, because I don't understand why they feel entitled to play good football. But I think there's always just been more than one way to play football. I think the defensive teams are a good foil for the attacking teams. I think if every team played like Man City, we'd find it boring. So I think there's always spaces for those other teams to come and play. Now, for those managers, such as, should I say? Now, are those managers going to get for top jobs? Probably not. I really like Conte. I think he's a good coach, but I think he rode the wave a little bit for a while. Like the Italian league wasn't the strongest when he won it, and he had clearly the best time. Then he came to Chelsea. I won the league without having European football and having a squad that had won the league just the year before, but just had a really bad time under Jose, having came 10th. He hasn't really hit any heights since then. So I think maybe there was something about Conte where it's kind of leveling out to kind of what his actual level is anyway. But Jose's career has definitely taken like a little bit of a nosedive. I think with Jose, he will always want to go somewhere where there's the opportunity to win. And where is that now for him? Maybe they might actually both find themselves out in Saudi Arabia, right? Like I don't think their stock is going to get any higher. So if they really want to cash out, probably now might be the time to go. But yeah, I still think there'll be jobs. They just won't be the Cities, the Liverpools, the Chelseas. I would have still put us in there, but there still will be clubs who will go for them because you need those type of managers in the game.
I've always thought, George.
Jack, me and Gabriel.
Sorry,
go on, Jack.
I've always thought, George, that actually Jose Mourinho in particular would be a really good fit for an international side. I always feel like Mourinho, even just, you'd bring him in, drop him in, parachute him in pre-tournament. Like, just be like, there you go and win 7 games. You win a title. And that feels like Mourinho, like in a nutshell, like the pure essence of Jose. Like that is where I think his next move should be. International football. I'd love to see him in the Brazil job. Go and do it.
Jack, the Brazil job. Jack, I said a few weeks back that they should get Southgate out of England, and I was laughed out. I was laughed out because it was too close to the tournament.
Right.
I think I think there are certain managers who could do that, who could have like a mini preseason and know how to set a team up, have the knowledge of the players. I totally agree. I don't see this thing where international managers need 2 years to kind of build up a system because Southgate's had like 10 years and he hasn't built up a system. So clearly it could be done. But anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, right.
Yeah, you should be. Nonsense. Jack, me and Gabriel, Jack, are very, very biased when it comes to Thomas Tuchel, but for very opposing reasons, right? So I want to ask you, are you having him? What's your view on Thomas Tuchel?
He's another one who I think is an exceptional knockout manager and has the capacity. I think in a single game, there aren't many strategists for like a one-off game that I would put above Thomas Tuchel. But the problem with him is that he falls out with everybody, always. Like he ends up fighting his board within 2 months of coming into any job. He falls out with his players. He starts playing his players in odd positions. And then by the end of it, everyone's fed up with him. And then off he goes. And then he starts well at somewhere else. And everyone goes, oh, we forgot about him. So I think both can be true. If I was a Man United fan right now, and they were linking me to Thomas Tuchel, I think I'd be a bit uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a place somewhere. And you know what? I think a Juve could do a whole lot worse because they're always fighting with each other anyway. So they may as well just add another chaos one into the mix and try and sort that out. But I think that if you were looking at like a Premier League side and thinking, is Thomas Tuchel the answer to get Manchester United back to the top table? I still think the answer is no, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have qualities especially in terms of single games where, look, put it this way. When we were looking at the end of the Champions League, I was like, there are 4 managers here, 3 of whom are, I think, widely regarded as very good managers, Tuchel, Ancelotti, and Luis Enrique. If I was trying to find one manager who I thought might be able to outwit Carlo Ancelotti in a single game occurrence, I would have picked Tuchel. But I wouldn't want him in charge over the course of a whole season.
No, I hear it. All right. There's so many more managers I want to get through, but we'd have to maybe do that in the new season because, I think there'll be a lot of movement over the summer. Just before we let you go, Jack, let's talk a little bit about your Fulham side. And, just to be honest, because we never talk about Fulham, just because Fulham are never crap enough to warrant abuse, but they're never good enough to warrant praise either.
Also, that's fine with me. That is so okay with me. We could stay here for 5 years after 7 years of bouncing between divisions. That'd be great.
Jack, I'm just being a cock. I'm just ignoring. I'm being a cock. But it has been a good season though, because you've never been at any point this year in danger of going down. I think either this year or last year, I had you in my bottom 3. I think it was last year, my bottom 3. And this year, you'd have been in my bottom 6 to go down. You've been nowhere near it. Silva, show him some love.
Yeah, man, really, really good manager, and someone who is tactically astute enough, I think, to work out where opposition teams are weak and take advantage of those opportunities. And actually, what I've really liked about Fulham this year, and to kind of come on from Silva, but this is part of it, is that last year Fulham stayed up by beating everybody below us and nobody above us. Like, it was very much just teams that lost to Fulham were below Fulham in the table, and teams that beat Fulham were above Fulham in the table, and that landed us about 10th. You're like, oh, okay, fine, no problem. But there was no huge scalps, bar Chelsea, but that's a personal level as opposed to anything else, because Chelsea were all over the gap last year. I had to get one bar.
Wow.
In, Gabriel.
Wow.
Everybody
I was going to leave that go.
And to be honest, Jack,
you dropped one to Carlos.
and to be honest,
Vinicius,
Jack, that's not even a credible. That's not even a credible shot, because everyone beat Chelsea
that's what
last
I mean.
year. This
That's
year,
what I mean.
Even that is not even.
It was our first one for like 20 years, though, so we made the most of it.
Fair enough.
This year, I think Fulham have been a bit more fun as a mid-table side, in that obviously we played in a couple of bits. We got to the Carabao Cup semi-final, gave Liverpool a really good game, at the league at Anfield. We took one off Arsenal at the Emirates and beat them on New Year's Day at the Cottage. We beat Spurs 3-0 a couple of weeks back. It's felt like Fulham have more capacity to kind of punch upwards this year, and I think that's been really important in turning it, around and actually being like, okay, we've got worse in some regards, and then we've dropped dumb points to Nottingham Forest and Burnley. But on the flip side of that, I think where we've been in terms of being like, oh, Fulham can stand up against a big team, and I think that probably gave, for example, Arsenal fans a bit of hope ahead of the weekend, because it was like, well, Fulham have played quite well against the big teams this year, and it didn't work out, but point stands. And I think that's all to do with Silva expanding and evolving as a manager. I think he's put together 3 seasons out for Fulham. One, win the championship with an incredible amount of points and a record goals total. Second season, keep Fulham up comfortably by doing what's required. Third season, turning Fulham into a side that can potentially dream of maybe getting to a cup final, getting back into Europe by actually punching upwards a little bit. Every year's been an evolution. And that, I think, is why people are looking forward to next season, especially given that this year we lost Mitrovic when the season had already started, and it looked like Palhinha was going on the final day of the transfer window as well. To have come from sort of that place to where we've been and where we'll finish the season, it is incredible.
Just final. Go on, G. Go on.
I was going to say, it looks like there's going to be a little bit. You mentioned Paulina, but it looks like there possibly could be a little bit of an overhaul for you, right? I had a love-hate relationship with William, but I think it's been really good for you. But I wonder how many years he's got left in the legs. Like, is this maybe the biggest test of Marco Silva's career in terms of how he can reinvigorate that squad and kind of go again and maybe even go a little better?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about Fulham is that we leave our transfer business late every single year, and it frustrates fans every single year, but it must frustrate Silva even more, because he has no idea what he's getting through the door until like August the 30th. But when you kind of look at the team, it's one of the oldest squads in the Premier League. It's the oldest starting 11 by average age in the Premier League, and there have been a lot of players who come in. It's been a bit sort of Marco Silva's rejuvenation clinic for the retired. In some ways, we've seen the players over 30 really come in and shine, as you say, Willian, but also players like Andreas Pereira, who kind of was cast out of Manchester United and has come back and revitalised his career here as well. So I think it's going to be a very important summer in terms of making that squad younger. Looking at, we're also going to lose Tosin Adebayo. Palhinha could go as well. Anthony Robinson could go. There's interest in him, and rightly so after the season he's had. But actually making sure this squad looks better and more fit for next season. And look, the Mitrovic money will come in because we didn't really spend that. So the Mitrovic money will come in now, and Fulham have to spend that wisely this summer to try and get this squad lower down. Silva likes a little bit of an older player. He likes a bit more of an experienced head in his sides. But equally, you get relegated, that comes back to bite you big style if you haven't got any sellable assets. So I think Fulham need to be a little bit smarter in the summer.
I hear it. Jack, before you go, where can people find you and your 17 podcasts?
I've got lots, but I'll only say one. I've got a general football podcast called Ranks FC, which we'd love you to come and have a listen to. Talking all sort of bits across the British and European game. We'd love to have you there.
Love that. We'll get that in the description below. Won't we, Jack? Give me a thumbs
Absolutely.
up, Jack. We'll get it in the... Yeah, Jack's good. Sorry, not Jack, Alex even. Sorry, I was talking to Alex, our producer in the background there. Thumbs up. Bloody hell. Get my names wrong there. It's embarrassing. We will get that in the description below. Listen, Jack, always a pleasure, always insightful, interesting talking to you. Cheers for your time,
Well,
pal.
thank you for having me. Cheers, George. Cheers, Gabriel.
Yes, big up, Jack, for joining us. Always a great listen. Enjoy having Jack on the pod. Let's now pivot, G. It's just me and you, and then there were two. Let's now move on to onto some boxing chat. Big fight this weekend between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Before we get to the fight itself, what do you make of the whole nonsense with Fury's dad headbutting
Yeah, I was going to say, as the big fight happened already.
I mean, is it? I mean, I thought it was nonsense and just an idiot being an idiot. But
it was.
What did you make of it?
It was so bad, and the thing is, it just reminded me of like that old embarrassing guy at the pub, right? Who gets into a fight, gets beat up, but then still tries to save face by like acting like I'm all right when he's got blood dripping down his head. Like, it was awful to watch. Look, and the thing is, I wonder more and more with boxing. Like, you know, we've talked about it so many times in the pod. Like, it's clearly not selling. Are these antics just to try to get things moving? And if so, it's not working. Like, I don't want to watch the fight any more than I did before. I must admit, like, for this fight, I always thought I'd be really excited for this one, but it's kind of crept up on me. Like, I kind of forgot it was coming. Maybe because they waited a little bit too long. Like, I think this time last year, when he first won, I would have been more excited.
Well, to be fair, remember, it was meant to be on 6 weeks ago, wasn't it? Or 2 months ago. And it got postponed.
Yeah, exactly. And then they got postponed. And then Fury didn't look great in his last fight either, but then that's Fury all over. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I will watch it. But I must be honest, like, between this, you know, I just getting a little tired of all the antics that's happening in boxing now. I just want to see some good fights.
Who do you think wins?
I'm still going to go for Fury. I'm going to go for Fury. But it wouldn't... At some point, Fury is going to, like, have a defeat, and a defeat that he can't make an excuse that he couldn't be bothered to show up for. That school of always Fury saying, I was unfit or I didn't take him seriously. But I think he'll have a little too much for Usyk. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we've got that. You know, obviously, I know you said it wasn't going to happen, but Mike Tyson, it's looking more and more.
We'll get to that in a second. We'll finish on that. But the thing about this, going back to this Usyk Fury fight, the thing that's interesting to me, G, is that this is going to really test the theory that I often hear from boxing aficionados that a good big un will always beat a good little un, right? And not that Usyk is a little guy; he's not a little guy. But in comparison, you know the point I'm making.
There's a size difference for sure.
There is. I think Usyk. I'm erring, and look, people know me. I'm no boxing expert, so my opinion is not based on anything particularly insightful or any huge knowledge. But I think Usyk wins it just because.
Oh yeah.
I just think his intellect will enable him to work out how to deal with the size of Tyson Fury. He comes across as a very smart boxer. People tell me he's really good with his feet, and I've watched a few of his fights, and I do see that as well. He's really good. But to be fair, Fury's got good feet for a big guy as well. So
yeah,
that applies, I guess, to both fighters. I just think Usyk will work it out.
You know what?
I don't think form-wise, you mentioned it, his last two fights, Tyson Fury, he ain't looked good.
He hasn't. I'd always say this, like, if you get the best version of Tyson, there's no one who I would bet against him for. So it just depends. Every now and again, you wonder, you see Tyson in a fight and he's awful, but and you think, oh, is he on the slide? And then he comes back and then he proves himself again. But if Fury's anywhere near his best, I think he beats Usyk, and I think he beats him quite comfortably.
We'll see. We'll try and get Adi Oladipo, who's out there in Saudi Arabia, next week to do a bit of a reaction to whoever wins that fight. I've got a feeling it will end up being a draw. I think if there's going to be a win, I think Usyk, but I can see a draw. I think they'll find a way to make it a draw. that's just kind of my personal view. And just finally, you mentioned just Jake Paul, Logan Paul. Which one of the Pauls is fighting?
One,
Mike Tyson? One of the
I think it's
Pauls.
yeah. Idiot.
I should know that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it is happening. It's looking like it's going to happen, man. I mean, I won't be this one. I won't be watching. I'm not watching this one.
You know what's interesting about it? I don't know if you heard, George, but it's actually gonna go down as on the record fight. It's not just an exhibition. So if Tyson loses this, it goes against this record. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm even more sure that he's gonna kill him now. But I guess we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Oh man, it's just a bad look, man. Really bad look.
Yeah.
Like, that one's coming up soon as well. So I guess we'll I won't be watching it, but you guys will. So we'll react to that one as and when that happens. G, it was fun. I would argue that these pods with just me and you, they're better. They're better. We're on time, unlike the other two. There's less waffle.
Less anger, less ranting.
Less anger, less ranting. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm with that. Listen, it was fun. You know where to find us.
We haven't spread one lie about Ollie or Marv yet. Like when someone's not on,
you still got 30 seconds. You still got 30 more seconds. Knock yourself out, mate. You could just slander the hell out of both of them. I'm not gonna stop you. Alex is not gonna edit you out. You say what you want, bro. When you wasn't here,
I got some smoke for Alex. I got some smoke for Alex as well. But we'll keep that.
Alex is getting strays as well.
No, let's on no peace.
All right, let's end on peace. Listen, it's going to be a big podcast next week as we wrap up the season, and we will know who the Premier League champions are. Listen, if Arsenal do it, mate, G said he might not be here next week. Maybe I won't be here next week because I'm going to be partying from Sunday until God knows when. But we will see. It's going to be a good pod. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We're here on YouTube, on your favorite podcast outlets. Go subscribe, go give us a share, leave us a comment, spread the ting. Till next week, peace.